Right, hello again. It's still 30th of October and 2nd of the night, and this is a pretty special bottling actually, because this is quite limited numbers, shall we say, and a distillery that's not easy to get hold of either. It's a distillery called Balmenach, which is here, and was founded in 1824 by a guy called James McGregor. But it's entirely possible, it seems likely, that on the site of the distillery they were actually doing illicit distilling for quite a few years previous. Now, the distillery was operated by the McGregor family until 1922, when it was sold to Distillers Company Limited, who eventually became United Distillers, who eventually became Diageo. But while they were still UDV, as they were known, in 1993 it was mothballed and was then bought 4 years later in 1987 by Inverhouse Distillers, who also do Old Pulteney, they do Balmenach, they do Anok and Speyburn as well. Now, the sale didn't include existing stocks, what was already there, which is slightly unusual. Normally when a company buys a distillery, they tend to buy the stocks that are still maturing, that have already been made. It's normally kind of part of the price of the entire distillery itself, and then you can use those bottlings yourself, so either use them in blends or bottle up under your own label or do something with them. Whereas Inverhouse didn't, so they just literally bought the distillery but nothing else with it. So they didn't immediately start distilling. They waited until the following year, 1998, to distill, and weirdly, so this is 1988, so we're looking at 18 years ago, there is still, as far as I can see, and certainly in the UK, there doesn't look to be any official Balmenach bottling. You can find Speyburn, you can find Anok, you can find Old Pulteney, because it's fantastic, and you can find Balmenach, but Balmenach doesn't seem to be available. Now, I could be entirely wrong. It might be overseas. It might be that I'm just not looking in the right places. But the Whisky Exchange weren't doing it. Put Balmenach into Google, and it doesn't seem to come up as an official bottling. So, in fact, I should do it now just to double check, because you're probably going, well, I'm looking at a bottle right now, Ben. What are you talking about? You're numpty. So let's just double check. So let's just put Balmenach into Google. Whisky Exchange have got it, like they come up with the distillery and all the bottlings that they do, but it's all, there's a flora and fauna bottling which is 375 quid, bargain, but there isn't the next one on the list is the actual Inverhouse Distillers website themselves. So they also produce Cowran gin at Balmenach Distillery, which is quite a popular gin brand, and it's almost like, because when I'm looking at the Interbev Group website now, and it gets to the Balmenach Distillery, and it does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs about Balmenach, which is the history about it, which is basically the notes that I've just explained to you, and then there are four paragraphs on Cowran gin, or Cowran gin, or however it's pronounced. So it's almost like Balmenach is really just for them to make the gin, which is doing much better for them, because it sounds like there's no official bottling Balmenach. So what I have here is this, which was donated by my good friend Ollie Chilton, who works for the Whisky Exchange, is, I think, if not the creator, basically the guy responsible for the Elements of Islay range, and he basically wouldn't be there if it wasn't for me. So he owes me, big style. When I was manager of the whisky shop in York, directly opposite us was a Starbucks, and we had quite a good deal with them in terms of, at the end of the day, we'd go over with a couple of shots of whatever we had open at the time, in exchange for frappuccinos, cappuccinos, mocha loca, toccacinos, all that sort of stuff. And everybody was happy. The manager was fantastic, and Ollie used to work for them, and he used to spend more time in my shop than he did working over there, and then on his days off he'd come into ours and everything like that. So it got to the stage where I said, do you know what, Ollie, I might as well pay you might as well not work at Starbucks, because he didn't really like it anyway, and I might as well hire you might as well work at Christmas. And then he became full-time, and I couldn't get rid of him, so I might as well pay for him to stay there. He ended up leaving the whisky shop. He moved down to London. He ended up working for the Whisky Exchange. He's now been working for them for donkey's years, doing really, really well, much better than I am in the whisky industry. He's a bastard. I hate him, but I love him as well. I think it's his birthday in a few days as well. So he sent me this. So this is actually a Balmenach that was bottled especially for the whisky shop. So I'll put a picture of the bottle up now, and you'll notice that there's actually a little logo saying the Whisky Exchange exclusive. So this is a single cask bottling of Balmenach from 1988. So this was when it was with UDV. And it's an independent bottling by the Signatory bottling company. So really Balmenach, all you're going to find at the moment is independent bottlings of some form or another. And it sounds like if Inverhouse aren't doing anything with Balmenach, if they are making it, they might be going into their Hanky Bannister blend and Cato's and the other blends they do. So it seems increasingly unlikely almost that you're going to get anything under maybe an 18-year-old that was from Inverhouse. Well, it's going to be less than 18. It's going to be 3 years. So you're looking at like a minimum of 15-year-old. Sorry, maximum of a 15-year-old being released. Minimum, maximum, whatever. So any Balmenach that's out there is probably going to be an independent bottling, and it's going to be fairly old. So this particular one, single cask bottling, was distilled in 9th of November 1988, so I probably should have waited for a few days to get the anniversary of it, and then it was bottled on the 7th of September 2015 in a hogshead sherry cask, and there were 192 bottles of this available. So they are selling it for £110 a bottle, which for a single cask 26-year-old of anything is actually a pretty good price. It's 51.1% ABV, so I've got some water ready for it, but we'll see what it's like without water first. So difficult to get hold of, and genuinely, the official bottling that was the old Diageo UDV Flora and Fauna range, a bit like the Octhus that we had the other day, like the Balmenach and the Rosebank, which I've got sitting in my cupboard. Now the Balmenach they're selling for 375 quid, so it must have been even then difficult to get hold of. There wasn't that much of it, so I'd be interested to see what it's like. No colouring added, not hugely dark either for something so old. But if is it a refill? I think it was a refill. So you'd expect to be maybe a little bit more colour than that, but who knows? Nice. There is age to this. You can tell this is an old whiskey. There is kind of an old leather and beeswax feel to it. However, there's a definite barbecued meats feel to it. But I've got it now as well. When I first sniffed it, there was a slight acetone nail varnish vibe to it as well. But there's also a definite like barbecued meats, barbecued sauce feel to this as well. And 51.1% ABV, and yet on the nose it does not give that impression at all. There's a lot going on here. There's age and antiquity, but there's also a soft barbecue smokiness. But it's not like you're stood at the barbecue and the smoke is wafting in your face. This is the plate of meat that's been put on the table, that's been smoked and has lovely, rich, almost vinegary. Maybe that's where that slight acetone note that I get from. Is that kind of vinegary barbecue sauce on there? Yeah, actually, I think that's probably what I'm picking up now. But that's a good nose. That's nice. Now it might need a drop of water, but not a lot. It just about gets away without having water. The heat is there, but it's definitely, it's not powering through. There's a really rich Werther's original sweet caramel toffee that's actually holding that alcohol burn back and smothering it a little bit. Really toffee-ish, but it's salted caramel, and it's a thick, rich salted caramel sweetness to it. The barbecue notes aren't there as much. The balance, I tell you what, the balance of the alcohol and that rich, almost syrupy salted caramel, toffee, fudgy sweetness that's there, it fights, but it's balanced. It's a dead heat. It really is. It's one does not overpower the other. It's so close to being slightly too alcoholic or slightly too sweet. And what the two do is they go like that, but they don't fight each other. They just sit and kind of give each other a cuddle. That is good. That is very good. It's very rich. Where the Altmore that I've just had was a definite pre-dinner spring summer whiskey. This is more autumnal. It's not quite fruity enough to be Christmassy, but this is more autumnal. It's more salted caramel. It's not pumpkin spice, which is apt seeing as Halloween tomorrow, but it's not far off. I'm going to add a couple of drops, but not too many because I've only got a little bit in there. But yeah, it's kind of it's an autumn whiskey. It's like the leaves are falling, the weather's turning, it's getting slightly chilly, it's got darker in the evenings. Our clocks went back yesterday, and it's all of a sudden we're driving home after a birthday party at 5 o'clock, and yet it felt like 9 o'clock at night because it was pitch black. And this suits that. This really does. More of the barbecue comes now. Barbecue notes come through now, having added a little bit of water. And there is a little bit more smokiness to it. It's more, you're not stood over the barbecue, but you've left the back door open while you go into the dining room, but your barbecue's outside, so a bit of the smoke's coming into the house. So it's got the barbecue sweetness, but there's a touch of the smokiness there as well. It's it's open out on the nose. It's almost a little bit of kind of citrus is creeping in there as well. More smokiness comes through on the palate as well, but I think I prefer it without the water. The salted caramel feel is slightly more subdued. I've not overwatered it. I just think that the intensity of the richness and the syrupiness that was there originally is just lacking slightly. I think I prefer it without the water. But all in all, that is a cracker. That is very, very special indeed. So, it's 110 quid, but for a 26-year-old single cask, that is very, very good indeed. That is not a bad price at all. Not a bad price at all. That is a nice way to finish off the weekend as well. Very, very tasty indeed. Ollie, thank you for that. Happy birthday for a few days' time. And yes, that's me done. And now I need to edit because I need to upload the first one right now. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.